July 8th, 2012. A midsummer day like any other. A world still reeling from the Kony 2012 debacle just a few months prior. I kid. But on this unholiest of days, Japan and its good animators at A1 Pictures would release something upon the world that would change the course of anime and indeed world history forever. A work that was shocking, divisive, as lauded as it was reviled. An animation that would go down in infamy in the Western otaku world. A work known as Sword Art Online? Really? This thing? This is what had everybody up in arms a decade ago? Huh. Doesn't seem too bad now, does it? What could have possibly... Oh. Today, the genre known as Isekai dominates the anime landscape. It has been for over the past decade. And it seems with every passing year that somehow an increasing number of slop gets released onto an unsuspecting public anime community. But how did we get here? Why does this slop seemingly refuse to die, not dissimilarly to its Western counterpart? And does this Isekai genre have merits beyond its own self-effacing, lowest common denominator pleasing reputation? Hello. I'm Nicholas, and this is Renaissance Manga. Today, we will be interrogating the entire Isekai genre as a whole through the lens of the one who started it all. But before that, folks, I gotta watch, and it's been beeping for a minute now. Cause you know what time it is? Shameless plug o'clock. That's right. If you good people like what we're doing here, then please, folks, head on over to the Patreon. Become an official manga head. And not only will you get to see more of our resident artists' awesome art, but you will be helping us bring these analytical anime essays to you even faster, and up the production quality that much more. Do it! You won't regret it. Now, on to the video. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps the channel, thank you. Sword Art Online, the Isekai progenitor, kinda. You see, after releasing to wide popular acclaim in 2012, the anime was eventually re-evaluated and would become the boogeyman of many voices in the Western anime community. I recall having first watched Sword Art Online, and despite my own knowing better, having quite thoroughly enjoyed the first season, flaws and all. I openly admit this. In fact, this admission strikes at the very heart of the entire thesis of this video. We will get into its virtues and shortcomings, for this video is, through the lens of SAO, an examination, critique, and analysis of the entire Isekai genre and its zombie-like vice grip on a great majority of anime content produced over the past 2 decades. Now, in order to cover my own bum, as it were, I will do my due diligence. For all you anime historians out there, I am well aware of the proto-origins of Isekai, the portal fantasy genre, and its prevalence throughout all of anime history. So let me be clear. When I say Isekai, I am specifically referring to the genre of anime that gained prevalence in the 2010s, in which our bland shujinko gets whisked off, usually by death, to an alternate world that runs off of the most bare-bones RPG mechanics and the most stale of fantasy tropes. This is literally what the word means. I being other, and world being sekai. At this point, I know what you must be thinking. SAO doesn't even quite fit into this description. It's a trapped in a video game, science fiction thriller with a fantasy RPG/light novel framework. Not exactly your bog standard isekai. There isn't even a truck in it. And I will concede this point. Rather, I think that SAO plays the important role of bridge between the burgeoning light novel adaptations of the 90s and 2000s and the generic video game system-centered otherworlds of the isekai boom. Can't believe I'm uttering this, but we can think of SAO as a kind of anime Beethoven. A truly revolutionary work that sparked a sea change in its medium's entire landscape. But what's perhaps most interesting about Sword Art Online is that, at least it seems to me, it was never intended to be such a work. I don't believe its creators or any of the people working on the production at A1 Pictures could have seen just what a drastic change in the entire anime industry SAO would herald. Sword Art Online initially released as a web novel in 2002. The story follows our protagonist Kirito, a elite beta tester gamer who, along with thousands of other people, become trapped in a new cutting-edge video game, Sword Art Online. A sick machination by the game's creator. For them to escape, they must clear every level and beat the final boss. Oh yeah, and if you die in the game, well, it's game over, bud. A gripping, edgy premise if there ever was one. It was written by the same guy who would go on to write Ace World, which received its own anime adaptation to moderate success. But SAO never took off, not even to the same degree as Ace World. If we're talking about the mid-2000s, Zero no Tsukaima, aka The Familiar of Zero, another proto-isekai classic, was the work that dominated the day. So it would seem that this janky, middling written novel series about being trapped in a video game, which certainly was not a novel, excuse the pun, concept at the time, was destined to fade into obscurity. But in the year of our Lord 2012, for what reasons I cannot even begin to surmise, the production committee at A1 Pictures decided to go ahead and adapt Sword Art Online. Oh, if they only knew what they would spawn. This alone was a rare thing for the time, in any industry, be it anime or Hollywood. Adapting a decade-old IP is usually not seen as a recipe for success. The main reason for this is that the SAO light novel adaptation was finally garnering popularity, having, 2 years into its officially published run, hit a top spot in the Konosuba Noberu ga Sugoi ranking, a title it would not fail to attain for the next 8 years running. While I can't be sure, I can imagine that this second wind SAO was gaining, when paired with the easily palatable and very popular aesthetic that A1 Pictures was quickly becoming renowned for, provided the production committee with ample confidence that their anime adaptation would see success. Having Adachi Shingo handle character designs was a particularly ingenious decision. His work looks good. And not only good, but incredibly pleasing, especially to more mainstream audiences. Do the words, "your name," ring a bell? That was him. But I can't imagine that the people who made this could have seen just what a massive hit SAO would become, and how it would change the entire anime landscape and the industry's trajectory for the next decade plus to follow. You see, SAO is, at first glance at least, not particularly special amongst its light novel peers of the time. It's got your standard powerfully edgy protagonists, harem tropes, main likable love interest, and the pretty dang good hook that is, trapped in a video game? But compared to contemporaries such as Hagure Yusha no Aesthetica or Log Horizon, one must ask, why was SAO the one to cause such a massive shift? The answer, I think, is threefold if not more. Firstly, there is the incredibly satisfying appeal of SAO's romance. Time is taken to develop the bond between Kirito and Asuna. And, importantly, SAO Season 1 shows the rudimentary structure of the now all too common isekai payoff. That's what I've dubbed it anyway. The main character, who may or may not be powerful at the time, leaves the main group of his peers early on after the transfer to the other world, builds up power all by his lonesome, only to show up later on and show all those jocks, bullies, and most importantly, popular girls just how much of a strong and cool guy he really is. You have to understand that very few anime of the time did this. A1 Pictures introduced this trope to the anime community like Four Locos were introduced to teenage Midwesterners in the mid-2000s. There is also the temporal factor, the moment that anime saw itself in 2012. Like many historical events and figures, a good portion of their cause and effect can be chalked up to right place, right time. For SAO, If we look at the anime landscape in 2012, a reckoning was imminent. The older, original, and more experimental anime of the early aughts were fading away. And with the advent of the internet age in full swing, anime was trying new ways to make itself more marketable, to grow its consumer base, to get more people hooked. Playing it fast and loose with characterization and world building. Yet, anime fans still do have, in fact, this hunger for high-concept science fiction, fantastical stories, and new worlds. This is the essence of the light novel. In many ways comparable to the YA novels of the West, who also saw their popularity soaring back in the 2010s as well, not to mention their dominance of the entire literary landscape as we know it today. The light novel is the perfect blend, or unholy aberration, depending on who you ask, of pleasurable entertainment, anime tropes, and edgy, mind-bending speculative fiction concepts. Perhaps the most extreme and perfect example of this is the incredibly popular Rail Deck series, known in Japan as the Toaru Shiris. At its best, this style of writing can provide an incredibly satisfying, yet deceptively rich entertainment experience that is tightly paced. See Re:Zero Season 1 or Full Metal Panic. At its worst, it feels nothing more than 3 bare-bones anime harem tropes dressed up in a trench coat. So, where does SAO fall in this spectrum, in my estimation? Honestly, somewhere in the middle, but leaning towards the 3 tropes in a trench coat side. But now, let's examine these tropes in a bit more detail. As our hyper-modern, corporate dystopian world barrels ever increasingly towards oblivion, people feel squeezed, squelched, lost, alone, dispossessed. Call it what you will, whatever this feeling of alienation, this hedgehog's dilemma you at home may be experiencing right now, I can assure you, dear viewer, the average Japanese sarariman feels it 10 times stronger. Coming into the new millennia, as economic conditions worsened, the stereotypical otaku whale of yore, who would spend millions of yen on OVA masterpieces every year, was becoming an increasingly rare breed. The average anime viewer's tastes and wallets were changing, and the industry has been shifting accordingly ever since. No longer was stunning animation combined with weird science and a bare-bones sci-fi plot gonna cut it. Heck, even anime titties alone weren't gonna cut it anymore. A new salve for our modern woes was going to be necessary. They needed stronger stuff. Isekai is the ultimate indulgent escapist fantasy. It combines the moso of a fantasy world, the self-insert protagonist, chunibyo edginess, and ostensibly addictive video game-like systems. What use is there in relating to an action hero? I'll never be one. A brawny, dauntless warrior who kicks ass and gets the girl? Couldn't be further from the truth. But a lonely, reticent inkara who just needs the right chance at a do-over, and who can use his, or her, but usually his, extensive knowledge of video gameage to conquer this new frontier? OMG, just like me for real. There have always been escapist pulp works out there, be they anime or otherwise. But Sword Art Online heralded a new kind of entertainment. Sure, there have been fantasies, gamified worlds, and wish fulfillment romances for time immemorial. But what distinguished SAO and its ilk from other entertainment is the emotional satisfaction it seeks to elicit from its audience. There is this kind of indescribable base pleasure one gets from witnessing Kirito become a Bita, even if I know logically that it is an incredibly silly and edgy thing. And this is paid off even further once Kirito, as a lone wolf in the game who had already lost people, again, very edgy, slowly falls in love with the girl whom he beat the very first floor with. It's the kind of thing that 16-year-old me would have been, and indeed was, extremely into. It's not that deep, but incredibly effective. Now, in the hands of a more skilled writer, this style of storytelling could not only be incredibly effective, but also allow for a deeper, more emotionally rich story that many anime fans, myself included, crave. SAO Season 1 has moments, brief glimpses where you can see what might have been. The perfect synthesis of action, interpersonal conflict, romance, and sense of progression. Alas, I digress. You see, what's interesting to me is that not only did a vast majority of these isekais which succeeded SAO emulate these strategic, addictive writing techniques, but they also copied its pitfalls. SAO quickly runs out of steam near the end of its first arc. Once Kirito and Asuna get together, which was satisfying, most of the dramatic tension falls away. The entertainment factor holds on by a bare thread to the question of, will they make it out of the game? And then once that happens, after an incredibly anticlimactic and rushed final battle, mind you, the only other bit of tension, yes, the only reason to keep watching at all, is to see how Kirito will save the damsel in distress Asuna from the elf video game she somehow ended up in and her horrible would-be rapist captor. This alone makes the show from season 2 onward a hard watch, not to mention that every other element of SAO just becomes incredibly boring on top of that. Thus, the pattern that many isekai hence fall into is that of SAO's structure, and indeed many a light novel in general. Starting off strong with a compelling hook and setup, quickly deliver to varying degrees of success on said setup, and then become mired in an inescapable swamp of tedium and nigh non-existent stakes. Many people smarter than me have stated that isekai is the anime equivalent of fast food, satisfying in the moment, but ultimately vacuous and probably unhealthy in large quantities. But I think it goes beyond this. This video seeks to answer the question, why won't isekai die? Well, I think that this is necessitated by its very nature, what it seeks to answer, or in this case, relieve. In the Buddhist worldview, there is a concept known as dukkha, which we can translate as suffering, which stems from the desire for material things and comforts. Often, the allegory of a leper is used. No matter how much one scratches, they will never be free of the gain, the source of the itch. Isekai media is a symptom of the exact same phenomena. In our increasingly lonely, modern world, we all feel alone, feel despair, feel dissatisfaction. Well, isekai can fix that. And by fix, I mean put a band-aid over a gaping mortal wound. It seeks to grant us power, agency, recognition, adoration. All the things we lack in our own dull, tortured existences. And, at this point, it isn't even limited to the stereotypical male harem fantasy. I mean, don't get me wrong, getting the girl is still a huge part of isekai. But take a look at the top charts over the past 5 or so years. Otome and villainous anime, the female equivalent of our beloved Mushoku Tensei slop, are consistently heavy hitters. The girlies, as it were, are just as not okay as the guys. But please, my fellow manga heads, don't mistake me. I love indulging in this slop from time to time. We all do, and there's nothing inherently wrong with getting our wishes fulfilled in an escapist world every so often. And perhaps the most surprising thing to me about making this video was, upon rewatching SAO for the first time in what seems like years, seeing just how good the production value actually was. It was an entertaining treat, I kid you not. Something about it almost felt innocently naive compared to the jaded, Marvelified, self-referential dialogue we get today. There is good potential for the genre, and seeing some of the best animators and artists in the business put their hearts and souls into crafting certain scenes of Sakuga, or beautiful fantasy backgrounds alone can make it worth it. It's just too bad that oftentimes the scripts don't quite live up to the same level of quality. I merely seek to explain this phenomenon that anime has found itself inundated with, the good and the bad. And to finally answer the belated question of, why won't isekai die? Well, the hole it seeks to fill is ever leaking. The power fantasy, the harem tropes, the RPG worlds, these all act as a panacea for a world whose problems don't seem to be solvable anytime soon. Certainly some works are better than others, but fundamentally, Isekai's flaws is that it does not seek to challenge the viewer on why they want these things, or even if they should. We all keep coming back to that same well, even though we know it just won't quite hit in the way we want it to. And that's because, by definition, it cannot. SAO, and Isekai by extension, commits the most grave of original sins, giving the audience what they think they want. And this is while they all fail to deliver deeper, more compelling narratives and romances. Evangelion, the most prescient anime ever created, well, second most, sought to critique this exact phenomenon 20 years prior to Isekai's glorious heyday, and its staying power speaks for itself. But for Sword Art Online, the truly ironic thing is that compared to so much of what we get now, SAO did things quite a bit better, particularly the relationship between its two main leads, Kirito and Asuna. And looking back, it kinda had to be. If it really sucked, well, maybe Isekai would never have taken off in the first place. Nah, who am I kidding? It was inevitable. But perhaps the genre, and yes, the anime landscape as a whole, would look quite different if it weren't for Reki Kawahara's magnum opus. Folks, thanks for making it to the end of today's episode of Renaissance Manga. Once more, I'm asking you to please like, subscribe, and maybe even ring that bell. It really helps the channel grow and do well, and thus allows us to bring more of this to you. We also have a Patreon link down in the description, so come on down and join the fiefdom of manga. I'll see you in the next one.